Well, good afternoon and welcome to Diffusion FM Talks, or FM Diffusion Talks. Either one works great, right? We are going to do a lot of talking today about diffusion, and specifically about some innovations in and out that have either been successful or are a lot like Donald Trump's hair and are disappearing more and more on a daily basis. So, as your host, again, I welcome every single one and all of you new and innovative people out there and audience members. Tonight we're finally going to weigh in on an innovation that has been requested by hundreds of people. And I talked a lot about audience members and about what they want to hear. And unfortunately, we have not brought this up sooner because there's a lot of people out there that still don't know about this particular innovation and where it's at in the process of diffusion. So that is a big question, is for this particular innovation, is it diffusing, or is it actually deflating? So the innovation, of course, is cryptocurrency. And that in itself has been in the news and around people, and we just have seen it as one of the things that is either a very sophisticated technology or just technobabble. So joining me today, this afternoon, is my co-host, Michael Nesbitt, which is a diffusion consultant as well as an experienced tech sector. However, since cryptocurrency is a very complicated idea, we're going to have to go step by step on a few things with you guys. And one of those is the actual purpose of cryptocurrency, what cryptocurrency is. We're going to talk a little bit about diffusion and what diffusion is itself as well. Some of the things we've talked about in this show previously and some of the things that we may need to revisit because of new audience members. And then finally, we're going to go out there and talk to our audience members through the phone and see what you guys have in your perspectives and your opinions about cryptocurrency and diffusion. So with that being said, Michael, get us started. What is this cryptocurrency that we see here, and exactly what is it? Is it something that people have adopted, or is it something that people have completely rejected?
Well, Frankie, as much as this might disappoint you, cryptocurrency is not what Clark Kent uses to buy new capes. It's basically a digital form of money. It's backed by computing power instead of by a gold or an oil standard. The difference between cryptocurrency and, say, like Amazon Pay or a debit card is that cryptocurrency is stored in a network instead of in a central server. So as opposed to, say, Bank of America, where all your nice, juicy financial personal data is located in one place, cryptocurrency is stored in the entire network of devices that have access to it. And there is no central server. And when somebody exchanges some cryptocurrency, when somebody buys something, there's a process that has been called blockchain, and this is what's behind cryptocurrency and makes it unique. The way that it works is when person X buys something from person Y, then they send a request to the network, and every computer on the network then verifies that transaction and makes a log of it. And so you have not just one, but thousands, potentially millions of different computers all validating the transaction. Then the transaction is encrypted for privacy and put into a time-based log, and then the next one will be stacked on top of it, and the next one will be stacked on top of it, kind of like Lego blocks, leading to the method being called blockchain. So what this means is that cryptocurrency can't be hacked and it can't be counterfeited, because you'd have to hack every computer on the network at the same time in order to actually do any good, as opposed to, again, breaking into one server where all the customer data and all the financial information is in one place. Cryptocurrency is also hard to manipulate for profit, which is very different from a lot of government-backed currencies. So I know that the whole idea sounds futuristic, kind of new, but actually, much like Demi Lovato's crack addiction, cryptocurrency has been around for about a decade without people realizing it. There have actually been about dozens, actually hundreds of cryptocurrencies circulating throughout the market. The most newsworthy, of course, is Bitcoin, which over the past year went through an entire boom and bust cycle after being put on the New York Stock Exchange. It's the most prominent one that's out there, but there are plenty of others. To name a few: Litecoin, Burstcoin, Ethereum. There are even, you can't make this stuff up, joke options like Dogecoin and Trumpcoin.
So with so many different options and just some of the different face values that are given to cryptocurrency, we're starting to see all of this kind of unravel into the process. So one of the things that we want to talk with our audience today about is we want to focus on Professor Everett on some of the things that he has brought to our daily lives and to
Right.
the daily world. And like I mentioned already, Dr. Everett Rogers is one of the renowned fathers, if you will, for this theory of diffusion.
Right.
And we want to go ahead and home in on the 5 attributes today. Just really quickly, we've talked about it before, but again, for those new audience members, we want to just home in on it and what diffusion is. And no, we're not talking about tea for all of those new audience members out there. It's more of the diffusion process and what we actually are doing step by step to successfully diffuse and successfully go throughout the society and make this something remarkable, I guess is the best way of saying that.
Get everybody using it.
Yeah, so the 5 attributes of diffusion are relative advantage, compatibility, complexability, testability, and observability. Really quickly on some of those, and I think a lot about how cryptocurrency has actually either gone through or has actually lacked some of these, but I would like for you to explain a little bit more after this. But really quickly, relative advantage, more and more, we think about I think of iPhones and how there's one thing about an iPhone that just goes beyond what the previous iPhone had.
Right.
And that makes it an advantage of that older version. And that in itself is slightly a relative advantage per se. On top of that, we have to have compatibility. So when we think of compatibility, we don't think about your Macs being also connected to your phones and everything all at once with your Apple Watch. But we're talking more about the aspect of compatibility with your daily life. Am I mistaken?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, so when we talk about compatibility, we want people to understand that when you diffuse something, that attribute specifically to have that certain concept, idea, or even technology be more compatible with the daily lives of those individuals, which if it's too complex, which is our next point of the attributes, if it's not easy enough or if it's not simplistic enough, people will also reject that. And we've seen that throughout some of Roger's literature as well.
Right.
Fourthly, we talk about testing, and I think about either Sam's Club or Walmart. Sometimes they have these people out there, and we've seen it in some shows. I know that Carrie has had a presentation recently where, if y'all don't know Carrie, she's one of my best friends. She actually went out there and did a simulation to is it an Instant Pot, where she went through somebody was going through the store and she was actually presenting to them what the beauty of this Instant Pot is.
Very hands-on.
Yeah, very hands-on. And so I think about the elderly women that are out there, not that Carrie's elder, I promise everybody, but I know that the people are out there giving little samples. And sorry Carrie, I just had to say that, I'm so sorry. But they give little samples of crackers or they give samples of orange juice for you to try it. They even do the Minute Maid whatever nowadays. And that in itself is so important because if people can't test the product, they're not going to want to buy it to begin with, which goes to the next part. If they don't observe immediate results, which if you go to the store and you eat that cracker and that is not anything different than a Reese's or any other piece of cracker that you've had in life, I'm assuming you're not going to want to buy it if it's a little more expensive or if it's even less of the quality that you believe to have. So again, those are the 5 attributes. Relative advantage, where people can actually make sure that there is something above the other products that is before it. We talk about compatibility, where compatibility is important in that it has to be able to just fit into your life like nobody's business. And we talk about complexability, and it has to be easy, or people aren't going to be able to or not want to adapt to it. And then testability, where people will actually want to try it before they buy it. And observability, where people want to see the results instantly.
Absolutely. Well, applying those to cryptocurrency, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the research that we've done, what some experts are saying. But as always, we want our listeners to be a part of the conversation. So feel free to call our live hotline to join us on air and know your thoughts. Again, the number is 1-800-RAISE-YOUR-HAND. One more time, that is 1-800-RAISE-YOUR-HAND. And Frankie, while we're waiting for callers, let's go ahead and talk about some of this research. So there's a lot of experts who are talking about the cryptocurrency is in a bit of a diffusion gap right now. People were excited about it to begin with, the innovators, the early adopters, but then it kind of stalled with the fall of Bitcoin. And this somewhat happened because of another aspect of diffusion, which is reinvention. Bitcoin, the moment it was put on the New York Stock Exchange, it was reinvented as something that was so completely different that it actually hurt it. It became a commodity, kind of like gold or oil, something that you buy and sell for profit, instead of a means of buying something else, a true currency. So right now, people are kind of avoiding it because of the uncertainty.
All right, Michael, I don't want to interrupt real quick, but I have a caller right now. It's Chris from Arkansas. Chris, what do you have to input on this?
Hey, Frankie, Michael, how are you?
Doing well. How are you tonight?
I'm very well. I had a question. I'm very much into the hip-hop music, and Akon has started his own cryptocurrency, Acoin. I was wondering, and this is true by the way, I wonder to what extent do you believe that alternate cryptocurrencies are perhaps delineating or dissolving the let's say viability of cryptocurrencies overall, or do you see no change?
Well, first and foremost, before I hand it over to Michael over here, I wanted to actually, first and foremost, I did not even know Akon was still alive, guys. So you heard it, ladies and gentlemen, from the very first, Chris from Arkansas, that Akon is actually alive. Go ahead, Michael.
Well, to answer your question, and that's a great question, Chris, I think with the number of cryptocurrencies that we're seeing out there, again, we talked about there are even ridiculous ones like Dogecoin, Trump coin. There are just so many options to choose from. And to some extent, I think that shows that people are latching onto the idea and that it's diffusing. But to another extent, there isn't an official one. Like Bitcoin was kind of the go-to cryptocurrency, especially when it was put on the New York Stock Exchange. But pretty quickly, people realized it really doesn't have a lot of inherent value, except that it is rare. It is a scarce commodity, just like gold or oil. But there's nothing inherently backing it and saying that it has value. I mean, the paper money in your pocket doesn't have any value, but the FDIC says that it has value and that you can trade it within the United States for other items.
All right, I don't want to interrupt one more time, but we actually have another caller from Wyoming, or Nebraska, actually, I apologize. Miss Rosa, what do you have to input today?
Hey guys.
Hello.
What's up? I'm calling because I have a question about this currency.
Yes.
So, I travel a lot, to other countries.
Mm-hmm.
And in the U.S. we use the American dollar, and in Europe we use the euro, and in the Spanish countries we use I forgot what we call them. Pesos. So in that regard, the cryptocurrency, is that going to kind of spread across all types of currency? Because if I adopt this currency and travel to another country, how will I be able to use it if all countries don't adopt or have this currency? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Again, that's a really good question there. France just issued its own national cryptocurrency. We don't have one in the U.S., but several other countries, I think including China, may have been the latest to jump on board and issue a national one. That's going to be a really big question of diffusion, maybe years and years in the future. First, I think we're going to have to see, wouldn't you agree, some sort of national diffusion where people are using it within a country before we start seeing it used internationally.
Yeah, so the first thing that comes to mind automatically is how many stores are actually adapting or have adapted, and is it easy? Do people have to have, I'm assuming people have to have internet for this, and
right.
They have to have some type of online way to access this currency, either through a website or through an
right.
app or whatever, and essentially, if you don't have that in stores, we have Apple Pay, right? We have Samsung.
Yeah, Amazon Pay.
Yeah, they have so many
Google
pays
Pay.
now, but that's not really what
No,
cryptocurrency is really working
those are
for.
called digital wallets. It's basically storing your physical money online in one nicely hackable server if somebody could get into Google. But
So I want to ask Miss Rosa, do you have money with you in your pocket right now, physical money, like dollars?
I have some coins.
You have some coins, right? So do you actually purchase your food and other gas, other expenses with physical money at this point?
No, I usually save my spare change for the vending machine
Okay.
at work.
So you would agree that probably like myself, you use probably a card to swipe in other aspects. I believe cryptocurrency is just the mediator between physical
Right.
dollars and cryptocurrency.
It's a question of relative advantage and compatibility here. I mean, you're already saying you're not using physical dollars. Most people are using debit and credit cards at this point, and again, we see a lot of apps, Google Pay, Amazon Pay, these sort of digital wallets. That's already moving towards a completely paperless lifestyle. I would say most people our age don't even carry actual dollars anymore. And so it kind of makes sense that with the digital lifestyles that we're leading, our money's eventually going to catch up with it. You have any other questions?
I'm beeping back in.
Yeah.
Okay. Come back to me.
Pressure thing with me.
Yeah. She brought up a really good point, though.
Wait, I want to come back.
Oh, just a second. We can
Yeah, we
talk
have
about
another
that.
caller from Alaska, and Miss Carrie, what do you have to say about this?
Yeah, like I really want to have like cash. So like if I go to a cash machine, you're saying I cannot get any money out?
My question.
Mike?
I'm sorry, repeat that one more time. So if you're going to...
Yeah, like if I want to go to the cash machine
Mhm.
and get money out, like how would I do this?
With a cryptocurrency, there isn't a physical token. Largely, that's what the dollar bills are, is a token of value. And really, in this digital day and age where everyone has a smartphone largely, it's pretty much diffused fully. Most people have internet access. There's not a lot of need for that token to be a physical one. And so really what you would be doing is instead of carrying cash, you would be accessing the financial network containing the currency through your phone, through your computer, possibly even through a smartwatch or even really high tech, some sort of chip implant in your hand or something. But if you wanted to carry cash, then that's probably not going to be viable with a cryptocurrency because the entire point of the innovation is that we're moving away from a physical manifestation of value because we are already living in and moving towards a paperless society.
Well, and think about it, that's happened with our TVs, our computers, everything's shrinking.
Right.
Except our iPhones, for some reason, they just like to get bigger and bigger, but other than that, everything is shrinking and getting thinner and almost disappearing. You know, so I think we have one more caller.
Rosa from Nebraska is
beeping
back
back
online.
in. I remember my question. So this is a paperless thing. We're all kind of electronic robots at this point in society. What happens when, let's say hypothetically, we go to war and the grid goes down?
That is
Then we lose our data, we lose our money.
That
How
is the
can we-
beauty of blockchain. So if you have all of your cash in Bank of America, let's say hypothetically they only have one central server containing all their customer data, that building gets bombed during World War III. All of that data is now gone. In a blockchain system, if one computer out of the millions accessing it survives, you have a record of everybody's data. It's encrypted, but you have a record of everybody's data if even one survives. So that means instead of your bank servers go down and you can't get to your bank account, if you can have half the US go out and the other half is still validating transactions and continuing to run the network, even though half of the network is missing. It makes do with the computing power that it has.
So it's a lot like the Despicable Me, the little mini-me's. Everybody has the same DNA, so you can kill all of them off except one, and you're still able to replicate it 100 times.
Unfortunately.
Great, thank you.
All right, so my question is related to this abstract ability of this currency, and most people cannot wrap their heads around if it is not backed by any government, or if this currency is not backed by anybody, somebody who is be able to make sure that the money is there, then who backs it, and where does this all circulation of money comes into?
That is Dr. Avinash Tombre, ladies and gentlemen, from Arkansas, and actually he hit the nail on the head of what I was going to ask you, Frankie, because I feel like that might be one of the issues in terms of preventing diffusion of cryptocurrency. Right now, it doesn't have a set value. The Bitcoin gained value when it was put on the New York Stock Exchange as a commodity. But then people realized, oh look, there's tons of others out there, let's just switch because Bitcoin's too expensive. The FDIC hasn't approved any. Do you think that we're really not going to see true widespread diffusion until the FDIC officially endorses or designates one cryptocurrency for the US?
Well, that's difficult just because in itself, you talk about the diffusion and the attributes that we have.
Right.
Some of them, it's obvious that you can't test it, and it's not something observable or physical for you to see immediate results with. So I don't believe that now is a good time for it to have been fused or for it to have hit the market per se. But I do believe that at some point, if any government decides to back it up, and just as you mentioned that France decided to make its own
Yes.
version of a Bitcoin, I don't think until a government backs it up in any way, we are going to see a full diffusion, unless there's some type of hierarchy, let's say all famous people or somebody of power decides to
Or
take.
a coalition of businesses,
Yeah.
even if Amazon, Google, Facebook decided
yeah.
to have one between them.
Mhm.
I think you'd see a lot of adoption of
Mhm.
that, even just from people who use those companies.
Yeah, definitely.
But that is just such a good point. Would you say that's a compatibility issue, of people not being able to trust a digital currency to hold its value unless a government entity or a very powerful business entity is backing it?
I don't believe so. I don't think that, excuse me, sorry about that. We're playing footsie in here, guys. It's the radio station. Y'all didn't see any of that, but it's okay. I apologize. So for the most part, I don't believe that people are just afraid, and it's natural and it's inherent that if you don't see any type of physical aspect, so with the dollars, for example, we see gold at, X place, because obviously the government doesn't want to tell us unless it's in the White House. But for the most part, sorry, I'm Mexican, all you audience members, I don't know anything about this, but for the most part, we know that there's gold backing it up, but we don't know where it's at, and in this case, for Bitcoin or for any cryptocurrency,
Right.
we don't see anything physical
Right.
backing
And
it
at
up.
the very least, we have the FDIC's assurance
Of
that
course. Mhm.
this money is worth something, at least to the US government.
Yeah.
So I would expect that once, or if we have either a government-endorsed cryptocurrency or one that is worked out between government and business interests, I think we would see a lot more widespread adoption because people could
Oh, yeah.
trust that it would have value and that they could spend it. Because let's be honest, if I gave you a Bitcoin right now, it's worth about $6,000 on the stock market. Could you go buy a car with that?
No.
What would you have to do to buy a car with that? You'd have to turn it into dollars first. And so what we're talking about in terms of a government-issued cryptocurrency is one that would be maybe equivalent with the dollar, maybe replace the dollar in value, but that we